Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julie Wright, and I'm the General Manager of the Waterloo Global Science Initiative. I'd like to welcome you to the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics and acknowledge that we have gathered on the traditional territory of the Atawandran, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. The Perimeter Institute is situated on the Haldeman Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. In light of it being Earth Day and the launch of Generation SDGs Summit, which aims to connect the local to the global using the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals as a framework, I want to take a moment to recognize the significance of the Dish with One Spoon covenant to this land. The Dish with One Spoon covenant is a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. Acknowledging First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples reminds us of our important connection to this land where we learn and work. Welcome to all. To further ground this conversation in the local, we've invited Terry Lynn Brandt to share her reflections on sustainable living as a seed keeper and member of the Turtle Clan of the Mohawk Nation of the Grand River. Terry Lynn is a frequent speaker at the UN on food security issues. Please welcome Terry Lynn.
Sego wakanuilado ne kanjonkwa slasla jungat waganakto ne kanyangahagani I haswaga wagidalon ne yadre no hat that no la de yuntaskoi. I am, as you said, Mohawk Turtle Clan. Digari Hogan is my family lineage, and I'm a traditional seed keeper in my community. And what that entails is that it is my responsibility to gather the seeds, ensure that they are planted, that their lines genetically stay nice and pure, that the seeds are passed on to the next generation, and that they attend ceremony and all the kinds of things that we do to keep our seeds protected, and so that our people have security, food security around all of the Haudenosaunee territories. I wanted to welcome you all here today to the area, and hope you have a good time. I was getting to be worried there for a minute because I didn't see anybody coming in. I thought, who am I going to be welcoming here? We need some people. So I just kind of wanted to remind you maybe of a little one of my favorite speeches. The Haudenosaunee people are extremely, what's the word? We're very much a protocol people. Extreme protocol people of anything, and I kind of, so it reminds me of, when we have certain protocols, we have certain responsibilities and things we must do, so it was quite funny one time when there were a bunch of professors here from the university came to visit our traditional chiefs, and they looked at our territories from above the Google Earth, and they see this great big green, vast green square right in the middle of, southern Ontario, and it just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. And they were there to talk to us about managing our forests. And the old guys, our old chiefs, are looking at each other, and they said, but we got a forest. And they're going to try to tell us how to manage it. They don't have one. So needless to say, there wasn't too much communication that continued after that, because we do have our ways of doing. We've had our ways of tending and taking care of, and that's really important. And in some respects, in some instances, there isn't cross communication, right? Which is unfortunate, because right now what we have left we hold extremely sacred, because there's not another one. Pick your feet up, Where else can you walk every day except upon your mother? And what are you going to do when she's not there? My friends, the Chitimacha, Choctaw, Biloxi Indians, and near New Orleans, where I'm heading down at the end of this week, are losing a football field of soil from their community every day because of climate change, because of oil excavation, because of a whole lot of reasons. They're the first Indigenous people in the continental United States to be classified as climate change refugees. So the work that you're thinking about in the future, it's already happening. For these people, they were in the 1830s, they were already marched across from Kentucky area all the way to Oklahoma, and they said, we're not going there. They were like the Seminoles, who aren't even Seminoles. That's just a Hollywood name that we give to them. But they chose to go to this island, and now that island's being washed away because of the way we've treated it. So they have to move again, be relocated. So we have to understand that's how severe it is, right? 65 out of 100 people in Inuvik are food insecure. That's how severe the situations are. So we're going to go up there and we're going to take greenhouses and teach them how to plant lettuce. Is that really appropriate? I don't know. That's something I'd be thinking about. Think of their traditional diet, the way they lived. You know, are we going to introduce things that are just too much, that their systems won't be able to handle, that they won't be able to continue to be the people who they are? And that's why I work so hard to maintain the seeds and the things that we carry and the ceremonies around them. Because I need us and I want our children to maintain who it is they are. I want them to keep that connection to the land. So in the work that you do, you have to understand that that's extremely important to us, as it should be to every person. Rural Canada used to be a beautiful place, the small towns. It's changed. And I think a lot of people would say, I want that back. I want it back. When we leave our corn villages, and even in rural Canada, when we've left those farm communities, we've done nothing but increase social ills, disease, crime, all those things increase when we have those situations. So we have to be careful. How do we recreate that? And it's basically, it's very simple, is that we do that, exactly that. We start to live more simple in the world, right? We don't need a family of 4 to have a house with 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. Come on, let's get real. Right? Because I don't know how many ladies will say when the kids are gone, they get sick of cleaning that big house, right? You know? So we have to think about, let's live a little bit simpler, a little cleaner, a little purer. And one of the things, as I say in our protocol of our children, when our babies are born into the world, one of the first things in our community is the first person to hold them is the uncle, right? The uncle of the mother, because that's his responsibility. He's the guide. He's like the godfather, so to speak, to that child, because it's his sister's child, and they hold the same claim. So one of the things what they do when they talk to them, those children, is first of all, they tell them, hey, you're human, right? Because they're a new entity where we don't understand quite fully, we don't know for sure where that spirit come from. But it appeared here now, and now they're a human. And they tell them that this family here is waiting for you, and they're so happy to see you. So they remind them of all those things. But one of the important things they remind them of is that what they call their inherent rights. You're born as a human into this earth. You have an inherent right to everything that's on it. The Creator placed everything here to keep you healthy, so you can live your life. Everything you need is here, and you have an inherent right to that. You know, and then we live in a society that sells water, right? And I've even seen people sell air. You know, so it's crazy. So we think about those things, but what we also have to remember is that as that speech continues on, it talks to those children about their basic responsibility as a human being, okay? And their basic responsibility as a human being, which should connect to anybody in the area of sustainable development, they say, is to listen to your mother. Listen to your mother. And they don't just mean your birth mother, because I defy any even grown man, grandfather, to not listen to his mother, right? That's just something you do. But we also mean that we connect to that other grandmother, that earth mother that we have, Mother Earth herself. Listen to her heartbeat. Listen to her and follow what makes her happy, right? That's what we have to remember. And we also listen to our grandmother, the moon, okay? So that's our other layer of the mothers that we have. Because even though we don't ever think about being sustainable in space, we gotta. In our languages, we don't even talk about aliens, because there is not such thing as that. It's all part of creation, as far as you can see. So we have to think about what we do here and how it affects the layers above us and the layers below us, because they're all really important. So I encourage you to continue and hold some of those thoughts in your mind as you work and learn with your colleagues here this week. And encourage you to to keep Skatnigolia, which means a good mind. So every time you hear an idea, and if it doesn't quite sit with you, don't be negative in it. turn around and do what our chiefs say. I'm going to put that under the pillow. And that's a phrase that they say because they say, I'm going to think about that more. I'm going to go back to that person, ask them more questions so I can connect with the idea they're trying to present, because it didn't sit right with me. But at the end of the day, you'll probably find that it was just that you didn't fully understand what they're trying to get across to you. Sayundelega means, do you know? In Mohawk, we can't really just, in English they say, I know, right? Just easy. But we can't do that in Mohawk, because when we translate that word, Sayundele, I know, it literally means, has your spirit acquired it? So when you hear an idea or concept from your colleagues, think about how your spirit acquires that in a good way. Right? Don't turn it into a negative way. So thank you very much and enjoy your week. Now go.
Thank you, Terry Lynn, for helping us better understand the connection to the land that you foster and honor through the traditions of your people. We will hear now from the Shatitsirotha Singers. Shatitsirotha means to reignite the flame. Welcome to Sydney, Hanish, Jadam Hunt, Steph Marr, and Amy Smoke.
So we are the staff and students of the Waterloo Indigenous Student Centre, and we're going to sing the Mohawk Friendship Song today to welcome you to your opening in a good way.
I love that they brought their children. So thank you very much, Shatitsirotha. Waterloo Global Science Initiative is a joint venture of Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics and the University of Waterloo. We are a catalyst for collective action on complex global issues. Through local and global connections, we create the conditions where big picture conversations can happen, and then we offer the space and time for people to act on that change. Today's presentation marks the launch of the Generation SDGs Summit, the fourth summit in our series, which brings together brilliant minds and unheard voices from different disciplines, generations, and geographies to address our pressing generational changes. This summit focuses on Canada's implementation of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals and how we can collectively tackle them from a community perspective, whether from a community of practice or geographic one. The experts and young leaders who are joining us this week hail from across Canada, from the Yukon and Nunavut and Northwest Territories to St. John's and Victoria and stops in between. You can learn more about our summit contributors and previous events at wgsi.org. To begin, we will hear brief opening comments from Mayor Dave of Waterloo, WGSI's chair and vice chairs, Feridun, Hamdullahpur, president and vice-chancellor of the University of Waterloo, and Neil Turok, director of the Perimeter Institute, as well as John Ferri, VP of Current Affairs and Documentaries, the summit's broadcast partner now for 8 years. And then we'll hear from Catherine Wilkinson, senior writer for Project Drawdown, the most ambitious plan ever to reverse global warming. And now please welcome the Mayor of Waterloo, Dave.
So it's kind of funny you can do Feridun's name. When Feridun first started, you know, everybody goes, well, how do you say his name? It's like Cindy Lauper, right? So you just say Cindy Lauper, go Hamdullahpur. So anyway, Jaworksy, but I'll have to think of who's famous like that. But Mayor Dave is kind of like Mayor Bono or something like that. So that's pretty okay, pretty cool. You know, the singers had to leave now, and I said, I've seen them 3 days in a row where they've been doing events and that, so they really have to go with their families. But I said, I'm getting to the point where I can do the Mohawk welcome song now too, and I said, I'll just have to video it the next time. So I copied it a little bit here, so maybe next time I can join them. Well, welcome everyone to Waterloo, beautiful Waterloo, and the University of Waterloo, Perimeter Institute. Thank you for hosting. It's just such a great time to be in Waterloo, to be mayor of Waterloo. We have so many different things going on. You know, it's interesting, the juxtaposition behind me of the trees and the 15 lanes of highway. And I think I'm somewhat pleased to see that the 15 lanes of highway are empty, because maybe that's because it's a very bike-friendly city. And that was something the Ontario Bike Summit was held this past week. And I don't often carry around big things with me. I don't carry this around in my pocket. But we were named the third ever bike-friendly gold community this past week. And what's exciting about achieving bike-friendly gold is you actually go through the motions of getting bronze, and once you achieve bronze, you can go for silver, then you can get gold. I was very happy to hear that we achieved gold. And they go, oh, don't worry, there's still platinum and diamond beyond that, so still ways to go. But we joined rare company. Only the deep-pocketed City of Toronto and City of Ottawa have achieved it as well. And that's because we're becoming a compact urban forum. We've grown to our borders. We're building more sustainable buildings. Just this week, it was announced, I think, on Thursday that one of the buildings in the University of Waterloo R&T Park has been named essentially the greenest building in all of Canada. It's net positive, gives back more to the grid than it takes. So just amazing what can be done. And the real focus there is, okay, we can build the building as green as possible, but how do we make the people inside as green as possible? And that's going to be our challenge. It's going to be a work that we're going to get through. We're a sponsor of that work. And the University of Waterloo, we're all going to try and get through this to say, okay, we can make a building green. Now how do we stop people from driving to that building? And we're putting in parks and trails and all kinds of safe segregated bike lanes and redoing our beautiful uptown. So very much look forward to the ideas that you're going to come up with. I do believe that things really happen, certainly at a global level, as we heard about Mother Earth, but the reality is it comes down to the community level of how we're going to handle things. And I think the power is in the hands of municipalities, and that's what gets me excited and ready to go to work each and every day, is the opportunity we have here to make this such a better place. And I look forward to hearing the keynote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Jaworksy. We're now going to hear from WGSI Chair, Dr. Feridun Hamdullahpur, President and Vice-Chancellor of the University of Waterloo.
Thanks very much, Julie. On behalf of the Waterloo Global Summit and its board of directors, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this summit this afternoon. And Julie and Dana and everybody else, before I forget, a great big thank you to you and the team for making this event possible. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for taking part in this very important initiative. It is timely, it is important, and it's also very timely that we are having these conversations. It is because the array of challenges our society faces are having a profound impact on how we live our lives now and in the future. Challenges such as climate change, healthy aging, and resource scarcity are not going away. Like their colleagues around the world, the researchers at our universities, at our institutions, are not shying away from these global issues. Instead, they know that we must understand the root causes of the challenges before us and, more importantly, take action. Now is not the time to shrink from these challenges and insulate ourselves from them, but instead meet them head on. The University of Waterloo and the Perimeter Institute aim to lead this march towards a science-based approach to developing solutions. Our greatest strength in taking on these global challenges are our unique skills and talent resources. The federal government's recent unprecedented commitment to fundamental research will also go a long way in enabling us to tackle these challenges. And I thank the Government of Canada for doing this exactly. The work being done at the universities, at Perimeter, and across Canada that is dedicated to finding solutions backed by fundamental study is truly extraordinary. But we must also have something to strive towards. This is why we have gathered here this week. With the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we have a set of objectives that we know will drive equity, freedom, healthcare, and prosperity for all. The United Nations SDGs were created in 2015 with the dream of ending poverty, achieving equity for all, and leaving a lasting legacy of opportunity and stability around the world. From ending hunger to climate action and clean water, the 17 goals are vast in scope. The 169 targets associated with the goals are ambitious, as they should be. I believe that with wealth of knowledge, experience, and talent amongst us, we can lead a wave of progress in meeting the challenges around these development goals. We will take on these challenges with enthusiasm and optimism, but we must also recognize the roadblocks ahead of us: financial constraints, political will, and social apathy. We cannot shrink from these obstructions. They are constant and not going away anytime soon. We cannot wade tepidly into the problems that face our world. We must be bold, we must be creative, and we must be collaborative. WGSI and the Generation SDG Summit is an opportunity. It is our opportunity to come together, share ideas in an open and frank way, and develop a practical roadmap for achieving long-term prosperity through science-based initiatives. And I hope and believe we can do just that. I believe universities and research institutes will play a pivotal role in making the UN SDGs a reality. As a research-intensive university, Waterloo is uniquely positioned to be a change maker. We can evaluate, develop, and implement impactful science-based initiatives that will enable Canada to meet our SDG targets. And what makes the WGSI and the university uniquely positioned is not just our science and technology. We are at the crossroad of excellence in teaching and research that is inspiring a new generation of leaders and an entrepreneurial spirit that make things happen. Solutions that have far-reaching impact come from exploration, planning, and action. The UN has challenged us with making progress on their development goals. This responsibility should not and cannot be left on the shoulders of governments and NGOs to make gains. We all have a role to play. The WGSI and institutions across Canada have the expertise needed to make SDG strides because we are one of the few places where policymakers, researchers, educators, and private sector partners come together. Our unique environment, as we heard from our mayor a minute ago, here in Waterloo, with the University of Waterloo, the Perimeter Institute, and the partnership with the WGSI, is why the university believed it should be home to the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network location in Canada. The SDSN at Waterloo will dedicate itself to accelerating problem solving for sustainable development through collaborations across Canada and through the global SDSN network. We will foster debate in academic circles and across society in an effort to engage everyone possible to making sustainable development a priority. Most importantly, the SDSN is well positioned to take the baton from the hard work we will be doing at the summit this week and be focused on taking action. Let us take the opportunity this week to lay out how we can tackle these issues in the service of future generations. Before we kick things off, I want to again thank you for being here, taking the time out of your busy schedules, and especially on this beautiful sunny Sunday. First that I remember in the long run. And share your ideas with us for building a better, most sustainable future. All of us can get so caught up in the day-to-day work and in our lives that we often don't get a chance to work on something that will have a tremendous impact for so many people in Canada and around the world. This week is our chance to have the careful and purposeful discussions needed to make a difference. By 2025, the World Health Organization projects that half of the world's population will be living in water-stressed areas. And Canada is not immune to these issues, as we have seen in the Indigenous communities around our nation. This is just one example of why we need action. We are a nation with an embarrassment of riches, and I know we can find solutions to these problems. Our future depends on our strength and resolve to work together. No one person, institution, or nation can do this alone. But we must take action, and in order to take action, we need a guide to take us forward in a deliberate and purposeful way. We will make progress in developing a framework to reach our SDG targets, and I'm honored to be able to have you here to be part of this journey. Please know that your contributions is what makes achieving the SDG goals possible. I'm very excited about what we will be hearing today and the rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Feridun. And we'll now hear from Dr. Neil Turok, Director of the Perimeter Institute.
So it's my privilege to offer all of you a very, very warm welcome to Perimeter. We're all looking forward to 3 very productive days and some really exciting and useful discussions. I'd like to begin by thanking our opening speaker, who told us she was her job was to look after seeds for her people. And as it happens, I received an email this morning from my daughter on the very same topic. My daughter has had some difficulties the last couple of years. She had a long illness. But this is the key phrase which resonated with me. She said, "I'm so done, capital, done, D-O-N-E, with the internet. I'm looking outside too, wondering how to start gardening. There's even a seed library." And this is in Stratford. I don't know if there's one in Waterloo. "There's even a seed library at the library here. You take seeds out, and then the idea is the next season you bring some back. Is that not a great idea?" So the serious point is that I think young people are going through very difficult times these days, and rediscovering what it is to be human and to appreciate the world we live in is fundamental. Every time we're all logged on and stressed out, we should realize that reality is not so far away. And as in this beautiful spring morning outside, let's appreciate it and enjoy it and find purpose in that realization. So Perimeter is a very special place. We're very, very fortunate. We were gifted this land by the community. And again, I want to reference the first speaker who encouraged us to listen to our Mother Nature. What Perimeter does is we listen to the universe. That's our mission. And we not only listen, we try to make stories, which I'm sure you're also very familiar with. Stories which explain to us how the world works and what it means. And those stories have been remarkably successful in seeding human progress and power, enormous power, which of course we have to learn how to use wisely. Well, many of us are immigrants here to Canada. I guess most of us in this room are. I'm from Africa, from South Africa, and it often feels like a very special place to be here. Canada is a very internationally open society and appears to be very different than most of the world right now. But, and that makes Canada and places like Perimeter a real magnet for international talent. And so we are very fortunate to be, if you like, a gathering place for the world, for forward-looking people from all over the world to come here and think about the future and the deepest problems. And I hope that's what this summit on the SDGs will be doing. So I want to encourage the summit attendees to think big, think global, as well as about Canada, but also bear in mind and don't shy away from the very big problems, because going backwards is quite possible for Canada too. And those of you who've been following the progress of the recent elections in campaigns in Ontario know that all too well. And I'm quoting here, unfortunately from the internet, that the large portion of the population which is, quote, working class, pessimistic, and deeply suspicious of elites and professionals are increasingly having a voice and feeling unrepresented by people like all of us in this room, and are angry and wanting to make their views clear. So in all your discussions in this summit, please don't forget about the real problems of the general public outside meetings like this. And don't forget about, first of all, conveying optimism as well as just gloom and doom, and second of all, encouraging human connections, self-organization, community building, and empowerment of peoples. So I want to briefly reference someone who recently passed away, who was a great inspiration to Perimeter and to many people, and I was very fortunate to count him as a very close friend. So there was a little movie about him earlier on, you may have noticed, Stephen Hawking, and he was advocating the importance of the SDGs because he cared very deeply about people and about the future. So Stephen devoted his life to physics and to communicating about it to the public, and we were very fortunate to have him visit here a couple of times. So why is physics and the universe and our understanding of it so very important for all of us? And I would say essentially one reason. It gives us incredible optimism because it shows us what we are capable of. If only we are rational, pragmatic, and of course look after this very special world that we share. And so just as one example, something that completely blew us away last August, and I think Mayor Dave mentioned platinum. So until last August, we didn't actually know where platinum came from in the universe. And then last August, the LIGO experiment detected gravitational waves coming to us from the merger of two neutron stars. A totally spectacular event. And so they saw this event emitting a pulse of gravitational waves, and they warned 50 telescopes around the world, and more, look over there, because they could tell them where it was. And so telescopes using light, using radio waves, X-rays, gamma rays, all looked at this patch on the sky and saw the consequence of this merger of these two very compact and dense stars. And what they saw was the creation of heavy elements. So gold, uranium, platinum was just seen right in front of our eyes. And so suddenly that problem is resolved. And we now pretty much know where all the elements in the periodic table of chemistry, where they were formed. The lightest elements in the Big Bang, the heavier elements in the stars, and the heaviest elements in these collisions of neutron stars. Amazing example of the unity in the universe, in the laws of physics, in science. And that understanding brings with it, of course, enormous opportunities. So here at Perimeter, everyone talks about Quantum Valley, which we help to seed. It's the next generation of technologies which will rely on the most basic laws of nature, quantum physics. But the main lesson is much deeper than that, which is throughout history, the discovery of how nature works has led to new opportunities, technologies and leaps forward which were impossible to anticipate before that progress happened. So that's why Perimeter exists. We are looking over the horizon in this institute to the opportunities that there will be for humankind. And I think that's a tremendous source of optimism. There's a great, big, beautiful universe out there. And for example, I profoundly believe that one day we will be exploring it, much as the Indigenous people in Canada first explored this wonderful land and learned how to appreciate it. So I'd like to close there by referring to Stephen's vision, his great humanity. He was an incredibly warm, generous person, We at Perimeter are relying on all of you, the attendees in this summit, to come up with ways of thinking, ways of acting, which will really bring about the kind of change that we need. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Neil, and for the warm welcome to Perimeter Institute. We're going to hear now from John Ferri. John is the VP of Current Affairs and Documentaries at TVO, and TVO has been a very important partner to us over the last 8 years.
Thank you, Julie. I'm delighted to be here to represent TVO today. WGSI and TVO, as Julie mentioned, have had a long-standing partnership, one based on mutual interests. Certainly the subjects that WGSI chooses to examine, energy poverty, decarbonization, what learning needs to look like by the year 2030, and now sustainable development, are near and dear to our hearts. We're a media organization that appreciates complexity. We welcome it. We like the challenge it poses. We believe unpacking and explaining complex subjects is central to our mission. And we define that mission a little differently than many media organizations and even other public broadcasters. In fact, we see ourselves primarily as a learning institution. Not entirely surprising, I suppose, given that we are an agency of the Ministry of Education. TVO runs an online high school. We create interactive curricular products. We're partners in the classroom with school teachers across the province. And of course, we carry smart, innovative, and responsible children's programming on our digital and broadcast platforms. You can sit your kids down in front of a TVO program and nobody tries to sell them sugar. And of course, we do journalism. The division I'm responsible for at TVO is Current Affairs and Documentaries. We broadcast and stream an hourly current affairs program nightly, The Agenda with Steve Paikin, which later this week will devote several segments to the conversations you're having here this week. We have a robust and growing web presence on tvo.org, and we have recently opened editorial bureaus in 4 Ontario cities, in part in response to the erosion of traditional media outlets in those communities. And when you think of journalism in the context of an educational mission, to me, that's a really powerful concept. At TVO, we truly believe that learning has the power to ignite the potential in all of us. We believe learning is lifelong, and that in-depth contextual journalism is central to that continuum. That's why we're here. To communicate the value and necessity of sustainable development is one of the urgent journalistic challenges of our times. But there are big hurdles. Forgive me if this sounds a little bit glib, but journalism is looking for a sustainable model as well. It's an understatement to say that established media, often called legacy, as if already defined by its past, have been unnerved by the pace of change. Technology has driven shifts in behavior that have made traditional models of advertising-supported news and current affairs obsolete. The sound of floundering can be heard everywhere. Business models are collapsing as audiences atomize and evaporate. Newspaper chains merge newsrooms, further diminishing any uniqueness in their appeal. And broadcasters cut their local news operations. Thousands of journalism jobs have been lost in Canada in the last decade. Traditional media is in effect caught in a relentless vice, squeezed at one end by the ad monopolizing giants, Facebook, Google, Amazon, and at the other end by the open source, hyper-democratic nature of the internet, where anyone with a Facebook account or a YouTube channel can publish content and in theory reach vast audiences, or as we've seen in recent political campaigns, very specifically targeted ones. The ground has shifted, the rules have changed, and the possibility of rigorous, in-depth journalism, especially at local and regional levels, is being greatly diminished. The threat posed by this should be obvious. Recently, at a public policy forum, a very senior member in the election campaign of one of our provincial political parties, you are all aware we're having a very interesting provincial election, said most young people get their news by scrolling through their phones, and that they watch an average of 7 seconds of an item on social media, and they do it with the sound off. He was referring, as I say, to younger demographics, but I think his comment is illustrative of the state of public discourse. Sustainable development is clearly a complex subject. It's cross-disciplinary. It requires an ability to understand, dissect, and unpack how varied disciplines work and how they fit into each other. Economics, politics, the environment, commerce and international trade, wage and social policies, I could go on. The role of journalists is to make it all accessible. But how do we make it understandable to people who lack subject area expertise? Or more importantly, whose lives are focused on raising a family, paying the bills, and fretting about their children's future? The answer, I think, is that it takes resources, creativity, and the commitment of people who are motivated by a passion for telling important stories. The role of journalism is to shine a light in dark corners. In order to define the problem, we need to highlight the failures and risk being shot as the messengers. As dark and depressing as this process can be, it is essentially an optimistic one. The corollary of defining the problem, of course, is pointing to the solutions. Last time we were here, the subject was energy poverty. One of our team, working with Discourse Media, spent time in the remote First Nations community of Piganjicum, where the knock-on effects of not having reliable energy were readily and sadly apparent. If the school's dirty diesel generator breaks down, not only is there no school that day, but also gone is the warm breakfast. So it's with some optimism that we greeted the announcement last month of a $1.6 billion project to connect 16 Ontario First Nations to the power grid. This is great news. It's not done, obviously. The project is expected to be completed by 2023. And as with anything this massive, there are hurdles ahead, but it's news worth celebrating. What concerns me is that even the good stories aren't being heard in ways that they deserve. There have been real successes when it comes to sustainable development. Extreme poverty on the planet has been cut in half in this century. Not enough, obviously, but an extraordinary achievement. Why isn't that better known? Why aren't these achievements celebrated? I think it's in part because slow-moving catastrophes like climate change are very hard to cover and absorb, but evidently so are slow-moving successes. Both take patience, resources, and repetition. In other words, long-term commitment. The upshot is this. While the challenges facing journalism, broken business models, hyperpartisanship, and the tsunami of fake news make covering complex and worthy subjects more difficult than ever, the news isn't all bad. Philanthropic organizations recognizing the threat to journalism and public discourse are increasingly stepping up. Established news organizations are pooling their diminished resources by partnering with each other to conduct major investigative projects. And exciting new models are emerging, such as the Monk School's Fellowship in Global Journalism, theconversation.com, and of course, The Discourse, all of which have the same goal, to marry deep subject area expertise with the resonant power of storytelling. Later this week, there's a workshop on how journalists can dig deeper into sustainable development, how we and you can work together more effectively. This is a serious issue, a question that I hope you will keep top of mind in your deliberations over the next few days. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John, and we really appreciate TVO's support of this summit series over the last years. Over the last couple of years, we've also been collaborating with The Discourse, as John mentioned them, and their SDG beat reporter, Alia Darcy, is with us for the summit this week. You can follow her reporting at thediscourse.ca. Ladies and gentlemen, particularly those of you online, this wraps up our summit launch session. Over the coming days, you will also have the opportunity to hear more talks by inspiring speakers. Tune in Tuesday at 7 p.m. for Dr. Ingrid Waldron's presentation on environmental racism and the politics of waste. She'll also have her brand new book, There's Something in the Water, and it will be available for purchase after the lecture. This week, you can also tune into TVO's The Agenda with Steve Pagan at 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. for 3 episodes that feature discussion about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. You can find the schedule and specific topics online at wgsi.org and tvo.org. Please take a moment to admire our beautiful backdrop behind the screen here. This is the work of Talkmaster Dave from Nova Scotia. We're so delighted that he could come and create this beautiful work for our live events. And for those of you here in the audience, please join us for a reception just outside on the main level. On behalf of the WGSI board, colleagues throughout Perimeter Institute and the University of Waterloo, our partners at TVO, summit participants, we thank you for joining today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on site, online, and on TVO.